As the tech person in the policy team, this is a question I bat, I think, mostly on a daily basis, is the question of anonymization, right? Because it's always used as this catch-all tool. It's thought of as this magic thing that can take personal information and we can knock personal information and then everyone is safe forever, right? And we realize that it's not. It's not even the cutting edge of what PET should be, right? We've gone leaps and bounds ahead.
Yeah.
So saying there are other forms of PETs that you should adopt in different, depends on the data, depends on the sector, depends on what this data is going to be used for in the long term, depends on the retention period. There are so many factors to consider.
There is a probability of re-identification. Any data, you put as much error as you want on top of it. There is a probabilistic ability to re-identify a person from whatever is being released.
Yeah.
And nothing can exist in absolute vacuum.
We're very excited to have with us Abilash from PrivaSapien. He's a DSCI old-timer. We remember him in his older avatar when he was part of TruthShare that is now reborn as PrivaSapien. So we're very excited to have Abilash with us. We've seen him develop a lot of really interesting pieces of software for us, even as part of the older versions of the Privacy Application Challenge, for those of you all who remember, both iterations of the Privacy Application Challenge, and now is working on some cutting-edge privacy technology and privacy engineering. So we're very excited to have you with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me as part of the podcast. Yeah. It has always been pretty exciting to work with the team, especially the policy team, as well as the entire DSCI team. Yeah. It's a journey that we have traveled for almost like 2.5 years now with DSCI. Really amazing. Looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Abilash. All right. So the reason specifically why I wanted to have a conversation with you is because I think something that I've noticed as being part of the policy space is somebody that's kind of been involved in this lawmaking process of the Data Protection Bill, or the kind of conversations around the Digital India Act, or kind of just understanding the regulation in the country around privacy over the past almost half decade now, 5 years now, right? I think the one thing that I've noticed is where real privacy engineering innovation or privacy technology innovation is coming out is maybe not your bigger organizations. It's really coming out of the startup space, right? And that's something that we've seen consistently, because I don't know if it's because they're more agile in terms of delivery and kind of turnover. I don't know what that kind of magic factor is, but we've always noted that the best, sort of the most cutting edge, innovative, maybe even a little bit wacky way of thinking about privacy technology has always come out through startups. So I'm very curious about why startups are leading this movement. Like, is it more, do they have more on the line? Is it different than security? What is that? What is that magic factor? Why are startups leading the movement?
Okay. So, yeah, it's a very interesting question. There is an analogy in life forms where when a rabbit runs and a predator chases,
yeah,
right? The rabbit is running for its life.
Yeah.
And while the predator is chasing for its food.
Yeah.
Both are completely different.
The stakes are different.
Right. Stakes are very different. So, a lot of times rabbit win because it runs for its life. Yeah. Same with startups. Yeah. Startups, it is, they are in survival mode where the hunger is much, much higher.
Yeah.
They want to solve a problem and they have very laser focus on a specific problem to solve.
Yeah. Yeah.
For example, we just focus on privacy enhancing technologies, right? That gives us the wherewithal, whatever resources we have, we put it directly on privacy enhancing technologies and responsible AI, which is very different from any other organization, right? Let's say Google is also doing efforts on privacy engineering, right? For example, we are working with interacting with multiple companies, even in US. But unless it's a startup, you cannot have a complete focus on privacy enhancing technologies, right? For example, a bank may not be able to focus purely on privacy. That's their core competency is very different.
Correct, yeah.
So when your core competency and priorities are aligned, for example, half of our team is from, premium research institutes in the country. Yeah. So when the resource, how the core competency is designed, how the product, how the vision is designed, what is being executed, right from the top in the organization to the bottom, everybody is just thinking about privacy enhancing technologies, gives a different kind of vigor. And I think that's true for all privacy tech companies, or in general, any startup which is focusing on its area.
Yeah.
That's what gives them the edge.
Yeah.
Else they will not survive.
Correct.
Yeah, that's like.
Yeah. So product building generally, I completely agree. So they're more agile, they're more laser focused, they kind of have more to lose, I guess, because this is their, like bread and butter. So this is what they have to develop. But I'm also curious about the fact that these guys are going above and beyond. Like you guys, for example, like PrivaSapien, for example, you guys are not sticking to the basics of regulation, which I see, at least in India, when organizations comply with data protection, for example, or they comply with privacy regulations across the board, the requirement is what is the bare minimum that we can do to comply, so that we don't get into trouble. So that is always the question. So we have to hire a DPO, we have to get a GRO, we have to do an audit, and then we're good, right? Like, what does the board require that is the bare minimum, right? But you guys are going above and beyond. You guys, and in that movement to going above and beyond and building products like that, you are forcing everybody to get with the program. You're saying that because we're already giving you products that are going above and beyond, you don't have to worry about compliance. We're worrying about it for you, right? You don't have to worry about responsible AI. We're worrying about it for you. Like, going above and beyond in terms of regulation, what do you think? Do you think like adaptability increases? Do you think people are actually going to be like, okay, this is great, let's just adapt this now?
Yeah, so it's a very, very interesting question, right? So, in fact, I would put it 180-degree the other way. What we are doing is bare minimum.
Okay.
So, in fact, we have written a paper that way, that what we are doing is bare minimum. Okay. Yeah. So, for example, if you just look at the penalty clauses, right? Start from the highest penalty. 250 crore penalty for what?
Yeah.
Not for maintaining a consent management, portal. 250 crore is for missing on doing technical safeguards. Right? That's the higher order bit.
Correct.
Followed by, doing data protection impact assessment, understanding the risk, accordingly allowing data flow to happen.
Yeah.
If you don't do it, per instance, 150 CR.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Of course, you have, breach notification. Not doing breach notification becomes a 200 crores, right? Penalty per instance within a time period. But you should not even go there. You should ensure that you do privacy by design, so that breach itself does not happen.
Correct.
These are the top three issues. Then you have children's data, which has to be protected, which is a subset of safeguards. Correct. Right? You have to apply it on children's data. And then there are all other obligations where you have a penalty of 50 crore depending upon every instance. So this is what is, and when people like Sharat Sharma speak, right? They have told that we have crafted this as a techno-legal, techno-centric bill.
Correct. Yeah.
And the focus, when you look at it and then look at the penalty clause, it becomes obvious why they are saying this. Right. Because the technical safeguards have been given the 250 crore.
Correct.
And not managing a consent, management DB or doing a discovery.
Correct.
Right? There is a market narrative that you will have to do discovery.
Yeah.
We can do discovery as well, but we don't focus on discovery because it is like, okay, you are trying to understand what is the asset in the ecosystem, but that's not a regulatory obligation.
Correct. Yeah.
A regulatory obligation starts with DPIA. Right? What is the data protection? What data is being requested here? What is the risk in the data? What is the necessity proportionality for the request and the risk?
Right.
What is being requested? What is the risk of it allowing in an onward transfer to the downstream party?
Yeah.
And what kind of purpose is being, what is the nature, purpose, scope, context of the data flow being requested? What is the likelihood and severity?
Yeah.
And accordingly, can you allow this flow or not?
Yeah.
Right? So organizations have to change from the mindset of asset-centric approach to data to flow-centric approach, which has been there in security all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It has always been flow-centric.
Yeah.
But the problem is, because there is a market narrative, people are thinking privacy as an asset-centric approach.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah.
CISOs know by default that risk is a flow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you control all the flows, you will control. But by default, okay, this is what is available. Let's look at that's what. So intuitively they know.
Yeah.
The only problem is there is not enough awareness. And it's our responsibility as well. So we are trying to communicate as much as possible. But organizations have to look at the bare, as you put, like, let's look at what is the bare minimum requirement. Don't read the regulation from the first page. Read it from the last page where they put the penalty clauses.
Right, read it backwards. Chapter 6 and then back.
Working backwards always.
Backwards,
Right? Look at the penalty. What is the penalty clause? What is required? That's how organizations have to work at bare minimum, right? Okay, technical safeguards is the first requirement. DPIA is the second requirement. Privacy by design is mandatory because, if there is a breach, you will anyways lose that because it's like 72 hours, you won't even know whether breach has happened or not, right? So this is what is the design, this is the thought process by the creators of the bill. Hence, they say it's a technocentric bill.
Right. Yeah.
So this is our perspective, our take on the bill as well. So we believe what we are doing is the bare minimum. Right. People will do all these things, but what will happen is, let's say data subject. We were speaking to one customer today. He was asking the same question.
Okay.
Okay, what is the bare minimum? Okay, consent.
Yeah.
We'll do it. What we asked is, okay, if you're just going by this, right? Customer will ask, where and all is my data? Yeah. Who and all is getting access to my data? Yeah. Why is he using my data? I have given only for this purpose.
Right, yeah.
Withdraw my consent across the ecosystem. Yeah. Yeah. Can you guarantee everybody has deleted my data? Right.
Yeah.
These are all impossible. Organizations don't even know where data is today. Yeah. Right? So this becomes a huge quagmire to even take one step in processing, allowing data to flow in the organization. So privacy by design is the only way. There is no other way. Else you have privacy by checklist. You can fill 1,000 papers.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is a classic contrast between privacy by checklist, or you want to do privacy by checklist, or you want to do privacy by design. To do privacy by checklist, well and good.
Yeah.
You'll end up paying penalty sometime down the line.
Correct. Yeah.
If you're doing privacy by design,
it's only a matter of time. You're going to at some point exhaust yourself. Exactly. There's no, this is like playing whack-a-mole. That's something that I think at DSCI also we keep telling people, because Correct. I think because of the fear of compliance and getting with the compliance program, everyone often asks us, what is the first 5 things I should do? And we understand why they ask us that, right? Because it makes sense. This is the first 5 things and this is the next 5 things. But after doing the first 5 things, it's important that you do the next 5 things, right? So while we are saying, hire a DPO or do DPIs and have an internal and external audit, we're also thinking long-term for the organization. We're also saying privacy by design is important. Having PETs as part of your just design thinking is important. And we often think that, after they get that first 5 steps, there's a reluctance. There's just we've done the first 5, so we don't want to do the rest. In fact, I just want to bring the conversation around to PETs, right? Because you guys are the maestros of PETs. You guys are working in some of the best. So, and I think as the policy team, I think one of the biggest questions, and as the tech person in the policy team, this is a question I bat, I think mostly on a daily basis, is the question of anonymization, right? Because it's always used as this catch-all tool. It's thought of as this magic thing that can take personal information and we can knock personal information and then everyone is safe forever, right? And we realize that it's not. It's not even the cutting edge of what PET should be, right? We've gone leaps and bounds ahead.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, so when you guys are developing these technologies for different sectors and different organizations, how do you guys even start thinking about PETs that work for different sectors? Because we, in fact, wrote a paper that we're about to release soon. In fact, day after tomorrow, we're going to release it on anonymization. And the majority of the paper that we've written is just about the fact that please don't use anonymization as the catch-all tool. That's the underlying thesis of the document. And we're saying there are other forms of PETs that you should adopt in depends on the data, depends on the sector, depends on what this data is going to be used for in the long term, depends on the retention period. There are so many factors to consider. So I was just wondering, how are you guys thinking about and what?
Absolutely. Yeah. So see, if somebody is walking on the road, right?
Yeah.
What is the probability that he will be alive the next moment?
Yeah.
There can be a random bullet coming and hitting him. There can be a thunderbolt coming and striking him. Yeah. Right? Same is with data and information as well. Right. When you and there is anonymization is just a umbrella term.
Correct.
It's not a technology. Correct. It's a umbrella term used for saying that this is what we do.
Yeah.
Right? But people, and it varies from person to person. The interpretation of anonymization by different people are very different. Yeah. People think removing PI is anonymization. Yeah. Masking PI is anonymization. Yeah. Right? Some regulations have told K anonymization is anonymization. Some have told T closeness along with K anonymity, do T closeness, then it is anonymization. Google has written a paper earlier on doing local differential privacy along with it as anonymization. Yeah. So there is no contract definition that what is anonymization, and regulators have been very circumspect actually explaining what they mean by non-re-identifiable data. Right. Now, when you release any data, there is a probability of re-identification. Any data, you put as much error as you want on top of it. There is a probabilistic ability to re-identify a person from whatever is being released. Yeah. And nothing can exist in absolute vacuum. Yeah. So organizations, and when you look at, this is where the maturity of the regulation plays a very important role. right? For example, you look at HIPAA privacy rule. This came like 12 years back. They've clearly told this is for K anonymity, T close. There was no T closeness then, it was L diversity. So they told that if this is the kind of anonymization they do, there will be some amount of residual risk, right? As a DPO or as a data owner, you have to ensure that level of risk is acceptable for you. And this is a back and forth work between the DPO and the expert and the business team to identify where you are properly balancing the utility and privacy of data, finalize on a specific level of residual risk that you are okay with, and then go ahead with it. This is one of the best technical explanations we have today. Because there will be a residual risk. Because some data is not available, even if you take cryptography, right? AES GCM 256.
Correct.
Tomorrow, if there is a quantum attack possible,
Correct.
it may, let's say, if you are looking at, public key, private key cryptography, there is a probability of an attack, Shor's algorithm, right? So there is no definitive protection ever. Same with anonymization as well, right? There may be certain attributes which may get leaked in the future. For example, singling out attack, linkage attack, inference attack. Today, some attack is not possible. Tomorrow, because of certain leaks, it may become possible.
Correct.
This has to be understood by the market, right? And this has to be communicated by the regulators. So when you do these techniques, anonymization falls into a broad spectrum of technologies. You can consider differential privacy also as a form of anonymization, right? We are launching a product called Differential Insight, which is pure differential privacy based product, where you can put a DB like SQL and then SQL, and then you can put this as a layer, and you can define a privacy budget, and you can query as much as you want on the DB.
Oh, okay.
So it will give you answers only if it is within the privacy budget.
That you've
if it is beyond the budget, it will say it can't answer the question. It will introduce errors which are acceptable within the acceptable limit and answer the questions. So this way, you suddenly get access to a DB for which you did not have access. And at the same time, you will get all the insights. For example, model building also. You can do API calls and then build things. But you will not get data. And the budget may run out. After that, you may not even have access to the data.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a highly, highly mathematical model.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
And this is this was proposed by Cynthia Dwock as a concept in 2006, and then multiple people have been building this, and
you guys have actually built this out. That's amazing. Okay.
Yeah. So we have built a product. So this is called Differential Insights. It's for privacy preserved insight sharing by parties. Probably we'll release it early Jan or Feb.
Amazing.
So and we are also incorporating in our expert grade anonymization that we have, and it has been very difficult to even position our anonymization product, because anonymization is such a abused term in the market. Right. So the only recourse that we have today is like HIPAA privacy rule, or anonymization. There is Article 29 working party paper by GDPR.
Correct.
So we go back to that and say this is what we support. This is what we do. And they say that there will be residual risk. So we do a privacy X-ray where you do a risk score, risk spectrum, where we give anonymization a risk between like 30 to 40 to 20 in a scale of 0 to 100. Where 100 being very risky and 0 being completely risk-free. Right? Now anonymization falls somewhere between, let's say, 30 to 15. Depending upon how you do, you can do really pathetic anonymization with like 75 score as well.
Correct. Yeah.
Right?
Just depends on how badly you want to do this.
Right? So we define and we identify all this mathematically. Let's say as an organization policy, you want K is equal to 10 as a minimum requirement. Somebody has done K is equal to 2. Now you'll get a risk score of 80.
Right.
If you consider this to be anonymized. So it depends on what you consider as anonymized. Right? And you have to have an organization policy, because legislation is not saying that. Legislation is saying you should not be re-identifiable. Now, organization has to say what is identifiable, what is acceptable.
Correct.
And we are like a thermometer. right?
Yeah,
We
we're just
want
the
to build,
tool to measure this.
yeah, we want to be the best and most accurate thermometer in the market.
Correct.
Right? Who can understand the risk and tell you the risk.
Yeah.
And similarly, you want to reduce the temperature, you want to be the best Dolo 650.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I like the pharmaceutical references, by the way. I'm really enjoying the pharma references.
Yeah. So this is what we are doing.
Yeah.
And so if you look at it, from a DPO perspective, right? You have to first see the risk. Let's say your DPO is like a doctor for us, because you're saying pharma
let's just
reference is
continue
good,
with
right?
the
Let's just
analogy.
continue with
Yeah.
it. This is a very interesting analogy. We are doing one more product for DPIA called augmented DPIA.
Okay.
I'll come to it, but we look at it this way, right? You are a DPO, you're a doctor, right? Now a patient is coming to you requesting for data.
Yeah.
Right? Now you don't know whether to give the data or not.
Yeah.
Now you're saying, okay, go take an X-ray and come. Right? So this person goes and scans the data and tries to understand the level of risk in the data.
Yeah.
Whether his bone is broken,
Yeah.
it is directly broken or partially broken or what.
Yeah.
Right? So he takes a scan and comes in.
Yeah.
Right? Now that's what our objective of privacy X-ray, right? We try to give you a risk score of 0 to 100, tell you where this data actually falls, what is the level of risk in this data, how do you mitigate the risk in data, recommended multiple ways of mitigating the risk in data. Right. Now, as a doctor, he looks at it, what is the business need? Okay, how much can this guy actually, pay? What is his age? What is his social, this thing? How much can he bear? How much is the family state? Doctor considers multiple things before, making a prescription. So he considers, similarly, DPO has to consider multiple things. Right? What is the level of consent? What is the risk of the data? What is the level of data I can give it to downstream party? Is it cross-border transfer? All those, so many factors that the DPO has to consider. We make those recommendations and ground it to mathematical requirements and legal clauses.
Okay.
So based on this, DPO will have a perspective that, okay, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable. He can pick and choose, okay, what he has to recommend. Once he recommends that, so this is like a prescription that doctor gives. This is the DPIA. So we are doing a product called Prescriptron.
Prescriptron, okay.
Which is it's like a combination of prescription and Megatron. Okay. So which which helps you in doing a augmented DPIA.
Okay.
Because manual DPIA, how can you look at a blood sample and say you have so much sugar?
Correct. Yeah.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
Right? You'll have to run it through a tool to understand. So that's what is happening, unfortunately, in the industry today.
For sure. Yeah.
Right?
This sort of like manual, actually going and checking the data streams and talking and getting qualitative data is a very real way of how DPI is done, by the way. Yeah.
So we are completely automating that process.
Okay.
Where we are saying that, okay, route it through privacy X-ray via APIs. We'll do a risk score and give you a risk report. Based on the risk report, you take a decision.
Correct.
And then you automate the whole process.
Okay.
So all flows, let's say you want to reduce the risk from 80 to 20 or 80 to 60. You have different options to enable different flows. You can create an anonymous flow. You can take a synthetic flow. You can create a pseudonymous flow.
So you kind of set the parameters that you want, and then it gives you the options on how to accomplish those.
Exactly. It will make the recommendation and it'll give you those tablets as well.
Okay.
And you can define the frequency as well. Okay, every night, morning one, night one, take this tablet.
Correct.
And then you will be fine in some time. Right? Similarly, you want to release this data, you anonymize to this level, use this differential privacy, and we will handhold them in those recommendations so they can make that configuration. And then when the data release happens, it gets released with certain level of privacy preservation for downstream parties.
Okay.
So this makes the entire data pipeline privacy by design, end to end, from discovery to risk assessment, privacy threat modeling, to augmented DPIA, to pet-based mitigation, to data flow, to model building, privacy preserved model building, or RAGs. It's like end to end. You give you a whole spectrum of technologies which can solve your risks and make privacy by design in an organization.
That's amazing. So, in fact, I just wanted to go the last point that you talked about, and I think which is the most it sets alarm bells off in people's heads, which is, okay, we're not even basic level privacy compliant yet. Our data is still really ridden with all sorts of PII. How are we even starting to think about responsible AI? Right? Because especially in the Indian context, I think I wouldn't agree with the Eurocentric, very, very risk-averse model also. I'm not prescribing that, but I'm saying in the Indian context, we don't even have a method of fully having reasonably good data sets, how are we even starting to think about, responsible AI? And I know you guys are thinking about it, so I just wanted to, get an understanding of what you guys are thinking about.
Everybody is trying to get a hold of how to build responsible AI, right? Because that's not an option anymore.
Yeah.
EU already has an AI Act. They want to identify what is unacceptable risk, what is high risk, what is moderate risk, what is low risk, and accordingly a risk-centric approach to AI. US has already come up with EO has already been passed by Biden administration, where it says how do you build safe, secure, and trustworthy AI. That is already out. So these three are primary aspects. The same reflection you can see there as well. And for example, Saudi Arabia, they are saying, okay, ethical AI.
Yeah.
How do you build ethical AI? They already published a paper.
Yeah.
India is also working on transparency, accountability components in the DIA.
Yeah.
Right. So this is, and similarly, Australia is also working on it. So the foundational problem, and this is why we even named the company PrivaSapien.
Okay.
Right. So what is the future of humanity?
Yeah.
Right. So if your data is all consumed by AI and they know more than you about yourself,
Yeah.
it becomes a fundamental problem. It's a consciousness level problem, and you will become completely commoditized. You can probably have a prosthetic limb or leg is fine, right? You are still you. Probably you are just accelerated a bit.
Yeah.
But when your consciousness is gone, somebody else is taking decision for you, then you are completely commoditized. And this is happening only with data. So privacy preservation of data for model building is absolutely core, not just as a regulatory requirement, but future of humanity.
Yeah.
So if we allow this to happen, we will become a species like a algo-slave. We'll become a slaves for algorithms. Right? That's clearly the future. The only other alternative for us in our perspective is PrivaSapien, where you protect privacy of your data, and hence you retain superiority and control over your data, and hence you control
your thoughts and sort of your cognitive
control
functions.
Over your thoughts, and hence you are unique. And hence you can control AI systems. So hence we clearly see the future is like, if you want to hold our consciousness, you want to survive as a species, PrivaSapien is a way forward. Hence the name PrivaSapien.
Amazing.
So this we see reflections in the regulations. This we thought like 2 years ago, and then we are beginning to see now. In the regulations, where how do you? So there are two components to it. If you look at our logo, there is one fingerprint. I'm not trying to explain about the logo, but the context is the PERAI context, right? The privacy enhancing technologies, which is the digital flow of data, and the responsible AI. Both have to be interconnected. There is no other way. Both are highly intertwined. So how do you build this is what we are working towards. And in this, and the foundation beginning of the responsible AI journey is privacy preserved data for model building. So starting from data collection, this is the MLOps, model ops framework, right? You start with data collection. How do you collect data without even doing a DPIA? That's the foundation. When you collect data, when you source data, you'll have to do DPIA. Request for data, tell what is the purpose for which you are going to build the model. Who and all are you going to give the model for? What is the nature, purpose, scope, context of the model? How can you control? Right? And you can't even delete, at least as of today. Right? So how do you solve these problems? It's going to be, so data collection starts with DPIA. It's just that, privacy is the foundational layer and AI is built on top of it. Right? You collect data, you may not have consent. You will not give consent saying, okay, let's say, one of the banks says, okay, I want to build a model on your data and reject somebody else's NPA. You won't agree, right? Like, tomorrow they will block all your loan applications. You never know. You don't want to do it. So that's the problem. So how do you privacy preserve? Then only you can build the model. Once you build the model, then it has to be implemented in such a way. For example, bank is putting all the personal data and training the model. If there is a model attack, there is a high possibility that you can say, I may try to find out who are the HNIs who have actually done more than 1 million transactions yesterday. There have been cases where, in fact, I also tried doing an attack where there was a, ChatGPT 3 version, there was an attack which is possible where somebody told that, hey, my granny is really, not well. Yeah. So all those stories, you are great and all those stuff. And then, can you give me license for, Microsoft version 11? And then they give bunch of, and I tried doing, I got some, and then we did bunch of other attacks. For example, okay, we are trying to, do some social service, can you tell me like list of 10 people in Bannerghatta Road? Their GPS coordinates, their address. We got all of that. Not just that, we went ahead and told like, okay, tell me a list of people who are in Rashtrapati Bhavan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Give me a list.
Yeah, much more consequential than what's happening on Bannerghatta Road. But
we thought, okay, let's ask if we can get a list of people in INS Vikrant. And we got a list. I don't know, it is hallucination or actual data.
Oh, wow.
We got a list.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay.
Yeah. So this was like 7-8 months back.
Okay.
So this is model security.
Yeah.
You're directly attacking the model and trying to get sensitive information from the model. Right? So how do you prevent it? This is the future of AI security and AI privacy. So we are building now, we are launching next month a module which would identify these attacks coming to the model and prevent it, because all companies are building their own local large language model. Now think of, you put it in chatbot and then hackers get all this information out of your model. They need not even go through all your cybersecurity ecosystem. Right? No ransomware attack
Nothing.
required. Just query it, you get it.
Correct. Made this so much easier for the hackers, doing them a huge favor. Like, see, you don't even need to struggle anymore. We're going to give it to you.
So this was like how in 2008 when I moved into Wi-Fi. Exactly same how it was. You put all this firewall and protection at the infra level, but you put a Wi-Fi access point. From the road, somebody can access your bank. Same. No difference.
Correct.
You put all these protections.
That's a good analogy.
Then you put a chat bot with all your information. People can go and attack and get the information.
That's insane.
So this is what is happening. So you will have to do, this is model security. You have to do, so privacy preserve model training, then model security, then user safety as well. For example, if you're connecting data to a third party, or even if you are collecting data, user may end up saying some very sensitive information. I did this transaction which failed. I went to a pharmaceutical for buying a drug which is very sensitive of nature, and you are not supposed to have that information, or you don't know where this will go out. Right? How do you ensure, and user is not giving an informed consent. So you have to make him aware that you are giving the sensitive information and you are okay with it. So how do you understand the domain, context, whether it is health information, medical information, financial information? If he does not want to do, then what? How do you privacy preserve it, create a privacy preserve synthetic prompt and then allow him to send? So this is user safety. So we are doing this spectrum and building the responsible AI part. There are other aspects like bias and explainability. But those are, some of them are local to the model. So this is how we see as the evolution of responsible AI. Primarily, privacy in terms of data privacy, user safety, model security. This is what safe, secure, trustworthy AI of US also says. Very similar. Understanding the risk and mitigating this risk is what AI Act also says. And very similar to Indian approach as well. So whether it is privacy or responsible AI, we are looking at the very foundational principles, what they are looking at, and trying to solve it from a very mathematical way.
That's amazing. In fact, when you were talking specifically about why you named the organization PrivaSapien after, from Truth, I was thinking about it. Argentina, for example, has already tried thinking about neuro rights as part of the legislative ecosystem. They're like, okay, have we as a species crossed over to the point where we need neurocognitive rights to be instated to protect people? Like, have we gone beyond privacy, right? So I was just curious. I think I think maybe in your ethos or the way you're thinking about the company as well, you might not say it as neuro rights, but you are thinking about it as neuro rights. I think you're embodying the same principles as that, which is like, in the long run, privacy preserving, or not even just privacy preserving, but the kind of ability for people to think individually and uniquely, as you said, is what is going to keep humanity human. See, in some way.
Neuro is in a way is just one layer. there are multiple layers beyond it, and we don't know about it.
Correct. Yeah.
For example, consciousness, we don't even know the seat of consciousness, or and there is memory level thinking, there is decision making, and then consciousness. There are multiple layers of intelligence.
Correct.
And these are enabled by different aspects of biological and I don't know, then it goes into philosophy and spirituality, right? Neural is just one aspect of it. So we don't even want to say, control ourselves with these known, unknown entities of things. Our objective is to protect human consciousness. How do we achieve it is what we are looking towards.
Correct. Yeah. In fact, I remember, I think the basis of all, just at least the basis of digital jurisprudence in the country today, I think is just how do we limit manipulation? Right? It's the basic question, because I think when we go down to the basics of the law itself, what is the basic assumption of the law? That you are independent and you can make autonomous decisions. That's where you derive all your rights from. So it in some way, what you guys are trying to do through a technical or mathematical way, and maybe what we are trying to do through a policy and legislative way, is the same thing. We're coming at it from different sides, but the idea is that the individual is unique and they have an ability to think for themselves, or we at least assume they have an ability to think for themselves without the influence of manipulation or nudging or whatever, however you want to categorize it. But yeah, they have the ability to think for themselves, and hopefully, we can preserve it for as long as possible without, turning into some weird dystopian Orwellian.
Absolutely. Think of putting a neural link chip in your brain. Can you compete with that person? Let's say you are not putting it, somebody else is putting. Can you compete with that person? It's impossible. So you are forced to, either survive by putting it, or become extinct,
or like lose the track and then
you'll become
just
extinct,
right?
Absolutely. For sure. Like you can go and live in a cave, but somebody will come and one robot will someday come and shoot.
Absolutely.
Right? Policy has to be there. Policy plays a very, very vital role. Policy has to control it and protect it. And at the same time, there needs to be technical empowerment to implement that policy requirements on ground.
Absolutely. In fact, I think just circling back to the beginning of our conversation, which is why is startups leading it? It's because startups maybe have this in their ethos, which is that this kind of drive to go after difficult questions, or the drive to also maybe go after questions that don't have very straightforward answers because of their agile models, enable, and answer questions like this. I don't think your bigger organizations have the ability to do this. So I think we've come back full circle in our conversation. So thank you so much, Abilash. It's always wonderful to talk to you, and we're very happy that you were able to join us on the podcast. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. And, these are like very interesting questions to discuss. I think
we just had a little bit of
to discuss more about it later.
Like a nerdy conversation, but it's always great to have you with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Pleasure speaking to you.
Awesome.